Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06, and it's Wednesday morning in your nation's capital. Thanks for starting your day with us on O'Connor and Company. We're going to get you through your morning better informed and better entertained as well. Let's start the day with a smile, shall we? 7:35, Maryland Senator Justin Reedy is going to join us and tell us exactly what the Democrat-dominated legislature did in Maryland and how you're going to have to pay for it. And then at 8:35, E.J. Antoni is an economist from Heritage Foundation. He's going to give us a preview of the tariff announcements we're expecting from President Trump today. We'll get into all of that coming up in just a bit. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Joining us right now, he's a tech executive. He founded and sort of invented the EZPass, which, for better or for worse, is a pretty cool thing. I mean, it does allow the government to take your money very efficiently. But you don't have to wait in line anymore.
You have to wait. I love it.
Those toll booths. Oh, please. Driving to New York from D.C. with EZPass is a dream. He also has a brand new podcast out. It's called Erased. Now, I have not listened to this yet, but I love the concept. It talks about the stories of people who have been victims of cancel culture. David Centner, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Well, pretty good. I got to ask you, so what was the sort of inspiration for this podcast? Have you been, I missed this if you have been canceled. I apologize. My regrets to you. What did you do to get canceled, David?
Sure. Well, if you wouldn't mind, let me clarify for a moment. I did not invent EZPass.
Oh, all right.
I want to be clear.
Thank you.
I created a service that used electronic toll collection technology, primarily with fleets. So, for example, if you ever rent a car and you can pay for your tolls electronically, that's an innovation that I created.
Thank you for that.
For my attic.
Thanks for the clarification. Yeah, I'm just a dumb radio host. I say what's put in front of me. But that's good. No, I appreciate that. That's good.
Sure. So the podcast, back in 2021, my wife, Layla Centner, and I own a school in Miami. One of the, several things that we do. We started a school because we moved to Miami and we didn't see anything that we liked. And then we did a little M&A. And then in 2020, when the world fell apart, we had just bought a school prior. And then in 2021, the vaccine started coming out and all the mandates started coming out. And we were, I think, way more awake than others, and we were very skeptical and cynical of what they were trying to shove down our throats. And in fact, as you know, went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they tried to make any company with 100 or more employees, mandate to take the vaccine. And so we took a very different approach with our school, and we discouraged taking the vaccine. We didn't tell people no, but we discouraged it. And there was a Zoom call with the teachers in the, I guess it was the spring of 2021, where my wife encouraged the teachers just to wait until the summertime to take the vaccine. And the Zoom call got leaked, and it became a global media sensation. It went all over the White House. We had camera crews all over, all over the school like flies, trying to talk to teachers and parents and students. And it was, what's interesting is your co-host, Mercedes Schlapp.
Yeah.
I wish she would. She actually was at ground zero of this whole thing, because we had a PR firm at the time, but our PR firm knew right away this is going to blow up huge. And they're like, we do restaurant openings. We don't do global media crises. And so we retained Mercedes and her husband, who did a great job helping us contain it as much as we could.
Oh, that's
even
good
though
to
it
know.
did blow up.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So maybe another time I could be on the show and we could talk it through. But she was literally right there at like day 2 of everything.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's why she's a friend of the program for sure.
David, I'm curious about your opinion on, there hasn't been really a reckoning for what happened with those the vaccine mandates, the school closures, the continued masking of kids. There's nobody got fired, nobody's in jail, and you have a generation of kids that are really suffering because of it. Why do you think that is, and will that ever happen? Maybe you'll address that on your new podcast.
Yeah, we're huge fans of Robert Kennedy, and we're so grateful to President Trump for putting him in the position that he's in, because he uniquely knows where to look and how to unravel all the decisions that were made and how we got to this predicament in the first place, which I believe goes back many generations, many decades. And so I hear there's a new committee within HHS that's going to actually take a look at vaccines, maybe for the first time with an open eye. And so I'm very hopeful and optimistic that there's going to be some true investigative work, and we're going to get to the bottom of all this. And anybody who did wrongdoing should pay some consequence.
We're speaking with David Centner, and he is the host of a new podcast called Erased about victims of the cancel culture. But we're really focusing on his personal story where he was attacked for advocating against the mRNA COVID-19 shot. I'm not calling it a vaccine because they literally changed the definition of vaccine to accommodate what this thing did. But it's funny, you spoke out against this. You advocated against its ubiquitous use to children, healthy people who, even if they did get COVID-19, didn't face any real threat to their lives. But then you Google your name, you look for any articles about you, and you're labeled as anti-vax. I mean, would you call yourself anti-vax? Are there some vaccines that you're in favor of?
Yeah, I don't even know what to believe anymore. I'm a product, just like everybody, of just beliefs that are created because that we've been consuming some narrative for a really long time. So, is there such a thing as a safe and effective vaccine? I don't even know. Even back to measles and the old stuff, polio. I don't even know. But I think now's the time to really dig in. And there's two sides to every argument. That there's a reason why. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think even Secretary Kennedy has said the vaccine itself may be fine and safe, which I think medical history has proven that they are. But now all the additives and the preservatives and other things that have been put into that and the vaccine schedule may be something to look at. But I mean, the scientific philosophy behind vaccination is hundreds of years old.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. But I think it's time for some true investigative scientific research.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to share about my podcast.
Go ahead, more.
That was the first of our cancellation attempts. There was a second one after that, and then there was one that involved me personally, which probably had a direct line related to our positioning on the vaccines and the mandates. And so we actually own a company called Erase.com, which is in the reputation management space, and which helps people clean up their reputations. It's completely ironic and coincidental. We had bought this company way before our controversy had even begun. And it's kind of funny.
It's like, not only am I the president of the hair club, I'm a member. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
You're using your own services. So hold on just a second. So let's say, hypothetically, there's a major media personality who's trashed your reputation, called you names, been completely offensive and rude to you. And now that's out there on the internet and in social media. Your company can sort of help restore a person's reputation?
Yeah, very much. There's lots of different tools in our tool chest, whether it's the suppression of nasty stuff that you prefer not to be seen, or in many cases, we can actually outright remove things. There's a lot of different tactics that
I might be giving you a call for that. I could use that kind of help. I'll be honest with you. There's some nasty things said about me. David Centner.
So the podcast.
Yeah.
So the podcast is an outgrowth of our ownership of Race.com, and that's going to be an amazing podcast. It starts officially on Monday. We have amazing guests that are coming out to share their stories of their cancellation journeys. Roger Stone, Roger Stone, a prisoner who was in prison improperly for 28 years for a murder he didn't do. Alan Dershowitz, celebrities, actors, a whole lineup, and it's going to be really fun. And these people are getting really vulnerable with us, and it's really important. I think people should really tune in, and they're going to enjoy it and see.
Well, it sounds riveting.
Podcast.
It sounds riveting. It's called Erased. The podcast drops on Monday, and I'll be listening to that first episode. David Centner, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll give Mercedes your best.
Have a great day.
You bet.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
It's Larry O'Connor and Julie Gunlock here at 7:17, and there's a story out of Georgia, Augusta, Georgia, that caught our attention. We wanted to have a quick conversation about it. This might inspire a thought process or two within your own cranium. A 24-year-old man has been arrested. He left his children alone at a McDonald's. The children were 10, 6, and 1. Presumably, the 10-year-old was put in charge, right? And do the math here. This 24-year-old man. So he fathered the oldest child at the age of 14, all right? So I want to pause here for a second. He fathered a child at 14, had 2 other children, 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. And he's still around, okay? Number one, he's still around. How many fathers who, get a woman pregnant when they're 14 years old is still not engaged in those children's life 10 years later? So already at the beginning of this conversation, that caught my attention, number one, all right? But, it sounds like, this is a negligent father. This is terrible. He left his kids at a McDonald's. What was he doing? Was he out doing a drug deal? Was he out hanging out with the boys and drinking a beer? No, he was at a job interview. He didn't have any help with the kids. He was trying to get a job, and so he had the 10-year-old. And for anybody who's raised a 10-year-old, you know that there's a huge difference between – hell, there's a difference between being 8 and 10. 10 years old, you can, I think, have most 10-year-olds can have some level of responsibilities. It's in a public place, and I'm guessing with cell phones here that the 10-year-old probably had a ability to call dad if there was an emergency. But this man has been arrested because he left his children at this McDonald's.
Yeah, ostensibly arrested in front of his children. What damage was that?
Oh.
Does that cause? This is just horrifying. And look, we got to stop doing this. We got to stop. Larry, this is not the first story. I've covered this for a lot of years. This happens all the time. It happened to me, actually, which I won't go into, where someone sort of harassed me for leaving my kids in the car for 5 minutes. And I know other people, Bethany Mandel, she's a friend of this program. She's been a co-host on this show. She also has dealt with this. Bethany and I talked when it happened, and it's a very common thing for sort of these nosy people to say, oh, yeah, we've got to stop doing this where we set a standard. Okay, no 10-year-old can be allowed to watch their siblings. Some 10-year-olds are absolutely capable of that. Some aren't. I don't think my son would have been capable of that, but some are. You're laughing because earlier this morning I said my son would probably have set his brother on fire, but
accidentally, I'm sure.
Accidentally, totally. But we've got to stop sort of setting these standards. I thought one of the most interesting comments, Rory Cooper, he was a big, I remember Rory was very involved in sort of the school closures issues. He on Twitter said, this is a situation where the police could have turned it around and just watched the kids for a few minutes to let them play in their cars or help this guy out. And instead they arrest this guy. Terrible. It is horrible. You make such a good point, Larry, that this guy is around. He's not relying on welfare. He's trying to get a job to make a better life for them. Yeah. And then the cops come and arrest this guy. He left them in a McDonald's in the care of the 10-year-olds, and he was probably very close by, probably had a cell phone. This is outrageous. It's a terrible story.
It was one of those McDonald's that has an indoor play station. So I'm sorry, if you've ever taken your kids to like a Chuck E. Cheese or to a McDonald's that has those play stations, you can be in the restaurant and you won't see them for an hour.
Right.
They will occupy them. Now, maybe the difference here is that there was an infant involved, that there was a 1-year-old involved. But again, if the 1-year-old is not walking and in the stroller, that's pretty safe in the watchful eye of a 10-year-old.
And I suspect this is a situation where some nosy person
was
like, where are your parents?
A worried customer told the police.
Customer.
That's what happened. A customer was worried, called the police. Richmond County Sheriff deputies arrived at the restaurant, located the kids unharmed, but they were unaccompanied, but they did what Dad told them to do. By the way, Dad, his name is Chris Lewis, 24 years old. He had to walk the kids to the nearby McDonald's because he doesn't have a means of transportation either. This guy sounds like he's doing the best he can and is incredibly responsible. This has gotten a lot of attention. And by the way, there's a really cool end to this story. Hopefully, first of all, the charges should be dropped against this
Yes,
guy.
absolutely.
Even better, former Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver Antonio Brown has seen this story. And he said, a story caught me by surprise. A dad just trying to find a way to make money for his family. I know he shouldn't just leave his kids, but some people don't have the means for babysitting. So he set up a GoFundMe for him, and he is also donating to help this guy take care of business.
Okay, now I'm going to cry. It's time to cry.
Well,
oh, my gosh.
The fundraiser already has raised $28,000. This is as of late last night out of the $50,000 goal, and Antonio Brown is also putting in his own money for it. We'll
be leaving my kids at the local McDonald's later this afternoon if anybody wants to call the cops on me. I would also like a GoFundMe page.
But your kids are teenagers.
Fine, whatever.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37 now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here and starting your day the right way with Larry and Julie. Hey, Julie.
Yes.
Coming up at 8:35. What do you prefer I call you, Julie or Julie Gunlock?
Boy, what a choice.
That's your choice.
Hard to know.
All right.
Equally bad.
Well, we're gonna, we'll put a survey out on social media because that's how you grow engagement.
Got it.
And that's what radio hosts have to do. They have to grow engagement on other platforms because radio is not enough anymore. I'm sorry, I'm just reading from the owner's manual here. This is what they tell me. 8:35. E.J. Antoni of Heritage Foundation talk about today's announcements of tariffs. We'll get to that coming up. But right now, Maryland Senator Justin Reedy is here to tell me how I'm going to take it up the behind because I live in Maryland. And the Democrats, along with their fearless leader, Wes Moore, they finished their legislative session. So, all right, Justin, I'm ready, Senator. Tell me how bad it's going to be for me, thanks to the Democrats.
Well, we still have a few days left. I wish we were done. But and radio will always be enough for me.
Thank you.
So we did. There's still a conference committee to go between the two houses, but we passed the budget and accompanying BRFA bill that has $1.6 billion in tax increases on Marylanders as part of how it balances the budget. Interestingly enough, we used rainy day funds the last couple of years to kind of balance some things of the budget with federal dollars leaving, but they didn't want to use some rainy day funds to avoid some of these $1.6 billion of taxes. Isn't that interesting? Because they say that's ongoing spending. Yeah. So there you go. It's pretty tough.
So hold on. We've got this deficit, but of course everybody knows Governor Moore inherited a surplus from Larry Hogan. And before anybody starts, screaming and pointing fingers and COVID and all that, down in Virginia, Governor Youngkin, same situation with Ralph Northam when he took over as governor. The difference is Virginia still has a surplus. Youngkin's trying to figure out how to give money back to Virginians, but now we've got a deficit. So what's the difference here, Senator?
Well, it's interesting, and I've made this point. We have several of us Republicans, but I have specifically. This is a unique Maryland problem in the region. And you'll have to excuse my voice because it was a lot of talking on the floor yesterday. Oh,
did you do a Cory Booker situation yesterday? Were you Spartacus?
Yeah. Actually, I would have loved to have 24 hours to talk about all the issues. We did go for about 12 hours on the floor combined on a bunch of issues, including the budget. But the interesting thing is Maryland is an island in a sea of surpluses. We have. And it's not even political necessarily. I mean, it is to some extent. But even cobalt blue Delaware has a pretty good financial situation with some level of surplus. Pennsylvania's talking about cutting taxes. West Virginia, very red, big surplus, cutting taxes. Virginia, purple state, surplus, cutting taxes. The Carolinas are in fantastic shape. So it's a Maryland problem. And as we tried to Republicans offered amendments to literally replace the tax increases with several different cuts of combination of cuts, some of which are, I thought, pretty easy to do. Others are a little tougher. You have to make some tough choices. And of course, we just can't cut anymore. Can't possibly cut anymore. We've got a $67 billion budget that's basically the same size or a tiny bit larger than last year. They claim they've cut a lot, but we're still basically spending more money overall. And we're raising your taxes. And we defeated some bad tax increases. There were some real egregious ones that I was on with you earlier about. Some of those we did not do, but they're still going to be taxes that hammer Marylanders.
All right, Julie's going to take over here, but I just got Senator Reedy. You got to stop saying we're doing this, we're doing that. It's them.
Thank you.
They're doing it.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I always
You're
have
right.
to help
You're
you
right.
Republicans in Maryland. All right, go ahead.
Well,
Julie.
these tax increases are just making it so difficult for people to live in the state, and I think people are obviously going to flee to other areas like Virginia. But I'd also be interested in your thoughts on these SAT scores, which are just it is so grim looking at the SAT scores in Maryland, which are below the national average, and then you look at Baltimore schools, and there's literally no one graduating that's proficient in mathematics. There seems to be no options for school choice. What do you tell people who live in, I mean, I know obviously you are working for people and trying to improve the situation, but what do you tell people who are really at their wits' end and who maybe can't move to another more friendly state?
Well, I have tremendous compassion for and have always worked for school choice. You make a great point, and we made this point in the budget debate. They talk about we've got to keep spending more on education because we want a world-class education system. And what I said was, I said this literally, and other people have made similar points on our Republican side. We have exponentially increased education spending in the last 25 years in Maryland. For 25 years, we've dumped extra money into education. Mm-hmm. And our scores on every measure are worse. Now, that's not all on the system. That's not all on teachers, for sure. That's not. But there's a societal factor. There's parents are involved, all that. There's community issues. But you can't keep saying, well, we just need to spend more. Just spending more will fix it, because we need more. You have to have accountability. And I said you got to slow down this and figure out what's going on and not keep raising everybody's taxes and cost of living. Because, Julie, I maintain that one of the problems you have in society, whether it's education, anything that's a problem, is the family unit and families. And one of the issues in Maryland is families are having to work forever. Work long hours, multiple jobs, just to make ends meet. So they don't have as much time with their family. They don't have it hurts families. Right. And so then, of course, education is hurt. And, of course, we have these other societal factors. So a lot of it comes back to how hard it is to live in a state like Maryland. I encourage people to, be engaged in the political process, because next year, every state legislator in Maryland will be on the ballot. Yeah. And, so I'm trying to tell people that contact me or that I hear from that have never been involved before to say, hey, even if you're a Democrat that you don't like certain things about Republicans, you need to understand that a one-party state is this far-left one-party state that's ruining our state, and we need more balance.
I hear you, and we need to get more Republicans, and we need to try to at least challenge this overwhelming Democrat majority, keep from one-party rule. There's another thing happening on the ballot next year, and that's the governor's ticket. We had Andy Harris, Republican congressman, knows his way around politics in Maryland, Lord knows, on the show yesterday. He's encouraging Larry Hogan to run for a third term. He can constitutionally do that. Do you agree that that's the solution?
Well, I think if we had someone like Larry Hogan that would run, that could win, they could run a credible race. I think that we someone
like Larry Hogan, but I'm talking Larry Hogan.
I think that could be very good. I mean, look. Your listeners and I have probably disagreements with the governor on certain issues, but I thought he managed this state, in a very good fiscal manner.
As many arguments we have with Larry Hogan, there's one thing that I always thank him for, and that is vetoing some of the nonsense that the Democrats tried to do. That's
well, true. And so I supported him for U.S. Senate. Obviously, again, for me, the goal is you have to know what state you live in.
Yep.
So we need a governor and you need somebody like Larry Hogan. If you need Larry Hogan, he absolutely could win. I think Wes Moore is really shaping things. If he signs all these tax increases into law, he's really putting the bullseye on him. Yep. And so I think that'd be great. But if he doesn't run, we need to find a good candidate to really take the fight to the Democrats. And I think right now the circumstances are lining up where I think probably Governor Hogan probably will look at it. I can't speak for him. But again, going back to it, we need help in the legislature too. So that
across the board, absolutely. If Larry Hogan should win, I hope that he does more effort to build the Republican Party in Maryland, and because that's one of my biggest criticisms of him. When he had that power, he had that goodwill, he had the popularity. He didn't do much to help his party, I don't think, to actually build your seats and build your numbers. But listen.
Well, yeah. I mean, in 2018, his reelect, there was a good effort that he was a part of, but we definitely. My goal is finding great people to run all up and down the ballot for sure, and it would be great to have have him run again for sure.
All right, Senator Reed. Listen, I appreciate you drawing some attention to what's going down in Annapolis right now. I'm sorry I derailed it a little bit to talk about, but you raised the issue of the next election, and that's why I think it's not too soon to be thinking about who the Republican challenger to Westmore is going to be, because it's an important race. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
More than just politics, because laughter is the best medicine. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
You ever drive around our area here in the DMV, as the kids like to call it, and think to themselves, who designed this road? Who designed this intersection? What were they thinking when they did this? It's a death trap. The traffic is terrible. There's bottlenecks everywhere. It's like there was no thought put into it. And I think, Julie Gunlock, in many cases, that's exactly the case, that they just sort of, one patch after another, no overall scheme. Well, in Alexandria, they're looking to fix some of those problems. Here's Fox 5 reporting.
City leaders now, they are turning to the community, as you mentioned. They want to hear from residents about how they can fix these problem intersections. Again, right here on Kings Street and Dawes Avenue. This is one of the areas, one of 7 dangerous intersections. Other high crash intersections include King Street and 28th Street, King Street and Park Center Drive, Seminary Road and Mark Center Drive, Seminary Road and Kenmore Avenue, South Van Dorn Street and South Pickett Street, along with South Van Dorn Street and Edsel Road. The city's Vision Zero goal focuses on eliminating fatal and severe crashes.
Oh, Vision Zero. All right, I'll talk about that in a second.
There we go.
But I was watching your face, though, as these intersections are mentioned, and you're looking like you're experiencing PTSD.
Yeah,
here.
Look, well, let me say one thing, and you can talk about Vision Zero and how it's really just a front for environmental, anti-automobile sort of getting everyone on the bus, right?
Right.
But let me tell you something about Alexandria. They claim they want to hear from residents. No, they don't. No, they don't, because they have done great damage in this city. Former Mayor Justin Wilson ignored residents. There were all these neighborhood organizations, I think 7 of them, who all said, like, please don't add in these bike lanes to this one street in Alexandria. They totally ignored all of these neighborhood organizations and citizens who said this is going to endanger. It's a major pathway to the hospital, and we really don't want these barriers put in the. They ignored all of the residents, and I mean it was almost 100% residents, except these 4 bikers who wanted this bike lane. So this idea that they want the input of residents is a lot of baloney. They'll do whatever they want, and they will push Vision Zero, which again is a green initiative to push people out of their cars and onto buses.
Right. They want to make it so miserable during your commute that you decide that you'll take mass transit or ride a bike. The whole idea of Vision Zero, and it started, I believe, in the Netherlands or Scandinavia. Yep. And it's well funded, and they spend a lot, and they give a ton of money to these local jurisdictions. And they use that money to eliminate parking spaces, to add bike lanes, to lose lanes. That's what, and Vision Zero means 0 fatalities. But the fact of the matter is, they end up being more fatalities.
More dangerous.
Yes, it is. They
make it. These initiatives make it more dangerous. And again, they don't listen to residents. They don't care. Alexandria government does not care.
Alexandria government only wants to listen to the residents who agree with them on tearing down Confederate soldier statues. That's the only time they want to hear from the residents. It's 7:53.